If you need assistance to hear or view this video, please inform the jury coordinator at this time.
Jurors, you make decisions that change lives. Some people will go to jail, some will go free. People may be awarded money for their injuries, others won't get a penny. In some cases, you may make a life or death decision. Simply, a juror's work is all about justice for all.
Hello, I'm Megan Flynn, Chief Justice of the Oregon Supreme Court, and I'd like to welcome you as a juror in the Oregon court system, and thank you for being here today. In honoring your civic duty, you protect the right of every person to trial by jury. The right to a trial by jury is a cornerstone of our democracy, the heart of freedom and justice in our country, and jury service is one of the most important ways we can participate in the decisions of our government. Our nation's founders believed that trial by jury is so essential that they demanded that it be included in the Declaration of Independence, and that right is protected by the Oregon Constitution and the U.S. Constitution. Every case that's presented to a jury is incredibly important to all the people involved in it, and they're trusting their case to the fair, impartial judgment of people from their own community, all of you. To support you in upholding that trust, you'll hear more today about the importance of recognizing and setting aside any personal feelings, assumptions, prejudices, opinions, or biases, and making your decisions based only on the law as explained by the judge and the facts presented. On behalf of Oregon's judicial branch, I want to express our profound appreciation to each of you for your jury service in criminal and civil cases. Our courts, your courts, are here to enforce the laws and protect people's rights. Even if you aren't selected to serve on a jury today, your presence here helps cases settle without a trial and is a reminder that we are a government of the people and by the people. I also want to acknowledge the support of your families, your employers, and your coworkers for your time away from your everyday lives. I know that jury service can be inconvenient, but it is an essential part of our democracy. Even with all our judges, attorneys, and court staff, without you, the court system could not keep our promise of justice for all. Thank you so very much.
I think in the beginning you're always concerned, oh, I'm going to be missing work, or you have these 1,000 other things you think are really important to do.
They make it pretty clear you need to show up. So it was, okay, this is just now one more thing that I have to schedule.
All I knew was where the building was. I didn't realize there'd be as many other potential jurors.
Can I have your attention, please? When you hear your name called, please say here or present, and then meet with one of the court members in the back of the room. Felipe Cabin.
Present.
Charles Etherington.
Here.
I loved it when my name was called because I thought, okay, good, now I get to do this.
Just to be able to make sure that what happens to this person or people is fair and just. Maybe it's a couple of days, a few hours literally out of your life.
I wasn't really nervous, but I was curious as to how things would be, what the courtroom would look like.
Okay, this is the courtroom. You can all gather around. Please turn off all of your cell phones.
You're seeing the defendant and you're seeing the attorneys and you realize, oh yeah, this is, really happening.
It's the first time most people walk into this room and actually get to see the courtroom and get a feel of the presence of what it is that you're doing.
Once you're in the courtroom, you realize it's not a TV show, it's not a movie. This is reality and it's dealing with real lives.
If you are able, please stand and raise your right hand. Under penalty of perjury, do you solemnly swear or affirm?
I would describe it as powerful because you knew at that point it was an important decision and something you had to really take seriously.
I do.
Well, I certainly think the right to vote is important, but if you really compare that to your opportunity as a juror, to make an impact on your community, you probably have no other way to make as strong a statement as when you actually serve on a jury.
Members of the panel, today we are selecting a trial jury for a criminal case. In a criminal case, the prosecutor, on behalf of the state, charges a person, called the defendant, with violating a criminal law. A civil case is different, generally a dispute between individuals or businesses. The plaintiff is the party bringing the action. The defendant responds. Generally, the jury returns a verdict for the plaintiff or the defendant. In criminal cases like this one, the defendant is presumed innocent unless and until the prosecution establishes guilt beyond a reasonable doubt, which is the very highest standard in our courts. We select jurors through a process called voir dire, which means to speak the truth. First, we will ask you to answer some general questions.
I work as a corporate recruiter.
I'm a hairdresser.
I'm a computer technician.
I'm a college professor.
I attended Portland Community College, then graduated from Portland State.
No, I've never been a crime victim.
Yes, I have a brother and some friends in law enforcement.
No, I have not served as a juror before.
Yes, I've appeared before in court as a witness.
The lawyers will now ask each of you questions. The purpose is not to argue the case or to embarrass you, but rather to identify your life experiences or attitudes that may influence you. Please respond to the questions honestly and sincerely.
Good afternoon. I'm the attorney for the defendant. Has anyone here ever seen anybody under the influence of alcohol? And how did you know?
Observing the person drink a lot.
You could smell it on his breath.
Yes, sir.
Watching someone drink and get obnoxious and belligerent when they normally aren't that way.
Have you ever asked?
The whole courtroom's there, the judge is up there. You just answer honestly so that they can really determine who can best serve on the jury that day.
We really needed to kind of dig deep in ourselves a little bit and make sure that we were answering the questions that the lawyers gave us very truthfully, maybe even if it seemed a little uncomfortable sometimes.
Dealing with allegations of driving under the influence of intoxicants. Have any of you ever had an experience with that? Yes, miss.
I have a brother that was charged with driving under the influence.
And do you think he was treated fairly in that case?
Yeah, yes, I do.
Well, thank you for your candor. That's exactly the kind of information that we're looking for. Some people think that our DUII laws are...
When jurors do speak the truth and share their experiences, it allows the discussion to be much more enlightening and much more open and fair to the parties. And by sharing your views and thoughts, everyone is vested in the process.
At this point, each side is allowed to excuse a certain number of jurors for almost any reason. So we're going to ask you to step outside the courtroom so we can make that decision. In a moment, the clerk will take you into the jury room. When we have finished deciding challenges, he will bring back the 6 of you who will hear this case. If you're not chosen...
It can be disappointing to be passed over as a juror, and one size doesn't fit all, and so the voir dire system is so important to sort through who's appropriate for this case, and the ones who don't serve are fulfilling a very important role.
You must have a pool of jurors to draw from. If you don't, the system fails. So simply because a person isn't ultimately selected doesn't mean that they haven't played an instrumental part in the process in making it work.
So whether you hear a trial today or not, the fact that you are here ensures fairness. If you would, please follow the clerk. And remember, do not talk about the case.
When you put together this group of people that perhaps are puzzled at the beginning, and you let them listen to the facts and apply the law, I think you come up again and again with the just result.
As I call your number, please come forward and take your place in the jury box, starting at the far end. Juror number 122, juror number 53.
And then they pick you. And that's when the interesting part really begins.
Juror number 14.
That's when you really get a feel of the presence of what it is that you're doing. You're getting to actually feel like you're part of the process at that point.
That was then when it hits you, you know, that that this is pretty serious and that it does involve a person's life. You know, whatever decision you come to is going to impact another person's life.
And then the trial begins, and you're a juror. And it almost feels like television because you've seen this on TV where the jury gets up there and they start listening to the case.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, on the evening of September 17th, the defendant, Mr. Curry, was driving.
With the opening statements, you get a feel for what's going to be talked about. That gave it some structure.
It's wonderful to finally get going on this thing, and you get some of the facts of the trial.
The prosecution will make an opening statement, then the defense will make an opening statement.
Mr. Curry driving. We look at all of the evidence.
And then the prosecution will call their witnesses.
The state calls its first witness, Deputy Stimler.
Under the penalty of perjury, do you solemnly swear or affirm that the evidence you're about to give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Deputy Stimler, how long have you been with the police force?
I've been with the sheriff's office for 12 years.
I think the most important thing is that you are attentive to what's being said and that you listen carefully to every word that is spoken.
I find it useful for me to take notes and also listen at the same time.
Jurors are permitted to take notes, but they should not let their note-taking distract from their ability to see or hear and understand the testimony of the witnesses.
They're the juror that is engaged. The witness is testifying and they're paying attention. Perhaps when the lawyer asks a question, the juror's head turns to look at the lawyer because they're listening, they're engaged.
Objection, Your Honor. Evidence not introduced at the time of the trial.
Objection sustained.
Something was said by an attorney, and the other attorney objected to it right away, and the judge said to us, disregard what you just heard.
An attorney would make an objection if they feel that the other side is trying to introduce evidence that is not admissible according to the rules of evidence. Those rules are complicated, and it's up to the judge to decide whether or not that information or evidence should be heard.
Using the map, would you please show the jury where you first observed the defendant's vehicle?
I observed the vehicle driving south.
There is an incredible amount of information that can be disseminated during a trial, and you really do have to pay attention and really make that the one thing that you're focusing on.
Someone who can listen to all the evidence that's being presented, and while they're listening, try not to decide till they've heard all of the evidence.
Members of the jury, we've proven this case beyond a reasonable doubt.
You knew it was closing, it was ending, and you could take in the final statements. That's kind of like the most dramatic part of the trial, is when both attorneys state their case at the end.
Common sense. Common sense and reason. Justice demands that we look at all of the evidence, not just the bits and pieces.
It's the hope of the attorneys to really connect with the jurors and highlight points that they want you to remember in terms of the evidence. But the most important thing, I think, to remember to really serve the justice system is to listen to the evidence. It's based on the evidence.
So let's consider the evidence that's been presented to you today in its entirety.
It is your sole responsibility to make all of the decisions about the facts in this case.
To weigh the evidence calmly and without emotion decide the case on its merits.
Do not allow bias, sympathy, or prejudice any part in your deliberations. Do not consider what sentence the court might impose if the defendant is found guilty. I have provided
instructions for your use. You will select one of your members to act as a presiding juror.
Deliberation is really the first time in a trial where jurors get the chance to evaluate for themselves all of the evidence that they've heard.
I start thinking about when I was going to make an impact was during deliberations. Because at that point, you're done listening to the case. You have to come together as a group and come up with a decision.
It seemed like everybody was pretty much open with talking with each other, and I also wanted to keep myself open, listening to other people's viewpoint, and maybe somebody caught something that I had missed with my notes.
We went around the room and each person got to tell their view of the case.
All the jurors need to feel like enough time has been spent thinking about and talking about examining any physical evidence that you have there to look at.
The jurors will listen to each other. We'll think about what the other jurors are saying. We'll figure out what is a just and proper verdict under the evidence and under the law that was given to them.
Everyone is getting an opportunity to have their questions answered if they're there, and everyone is getting a chance to feel that whatever they decide ultimately, they are respected for that decision.
So how did you get selected for jury service? In Oregon, you're eligible if you're 18 years of age or older, a U.S. citizen, and a resident in the county in which you're called to serve. Jurors are drawn randomly from a master list of registered voters and people who have an Oregon driver's license or identification card. If you have a disability that needs accommodation, please see the court staff. Some juries have 6 jurors and some have 12 based on the nature of the case. Some of you may be selected as a grand juror. Grand jurors decide in a criminal case whether there's enough evidence to charge somebody with a serious crime. Some jurors will wait and not be selected for a trial. This does not mean that your waiting was a waste of time. Your presence does have value. Imagine, and this has happened, that we had a trial scheduled to start but didn't have enough jurors. All the witnesses and everyone who prepared for the case had to leave and everything had to be rescheduled. Sometimes the very presence of jurors prompts parties to resolve disputes before going through a trial. Your presence allows the courts to keep its promise of justice.
I found that being a juror was really important, and being judged by your peers is an important aspect of being a citizen of this country, and it's one of the great benefits of being a citizen.
Whatever your creed, whatever your race, whatever your nationality, your walk of life, that each individual, no matter what, is afforded a fair trial.
We are members of a community, and we need to take ownership in our community. And so we should vote, and we should answer the jury summons. I know the temptation is to say, I don't have time for this, I'm too busy.
This is somebody's life. So, just to be able to devote a few hours to make sure that what happens to this person or people is fair and just is really not that much out of your entire life when you think about it.
And how often in our lifetime does the government come to us and say, I want your opinion, I want to know what your decision is, and really listen?
We ask people in the community to gather and render a voice of the community. They bring their experiences, they bring their backgrounds, they bring their collective intelligence.
This system works because the jurors themselves, when they come in and realize that if there's going to be justice, if there's going to be fairness, it's up to them.
It's so important for juries to exist in this country to serve justice. You're going to be that one very important person that's going to be there that day to help serve justice in your community.
Some jurors are very concerned about whether or not they're up to the task of making these decisions. Lives will be changed by the decisions jurors make. And I assure jurors that they can do this work. In fact, they are the only ones who can. In fact, the right to a jury trial is worth fighting and dying for because it works so remarkably well.
Has the jury reached a verdict?
Yes, Your Honor, we have.